When I came to Chicago from Guatemala with my family, I was 15 years old. And we were so surprised how different things were here in Chicago. For example, in Guatemala, we had lakes, we had rivers. But we went to see the Lake Michigan for the first time. And it was so huge. It didn't look like a lake. It looked like an ocean. We couldn't believe that it was a lake. We had stores in Guatemala where we buy our groceries, but they were tiny grocery stores. Here they had humongous stores where you could get lost for days. And here everybody spoke English. My family and I, we spoke Spanish. Well, my family spoke Spanish because I could barely speak. When I was a kid, I suffered from a speech impediment. I used to stutter. And when I came to the USA because of the shock culture of everything from moving, I started stuttering again, even though I have been able to get over my stuttering earlier on. And I thought to myself, now I'm not only going to stutter in Spanish, I'm going to stutter in English too. Another thing that was different here in Chicago from Guatemala was that in Guatemala we go to school during the summertime. And we have vacations on the wintertime. Here, you go to school on the winter and you have vacation on the summer. So we came to Chicago on the summer, which meant we didn't have to go to school. But instead of spending the time at the lake or at the park having fun, we spent the time at home because everywhere that we went, things were so different. We felt so alien. We felt like we didn't belong. In fact, the only place where we felt at home was at home. At our tiny apartment, we could watch TV all day long. We could watch Univision and Telemundo. We could see and watch people speaking Spanish. We could watch all the shows that we used to watch in Guatemala. And then in the afternoons when my mother came back from work and she changed the channel to watch her novelas, her soap operas, we would sit with our mom and watch the novelas too. Which is kind of strange because in Guatemala, guys are not supposed to be watching novelas, but we were like, novelas! But the best part was the weekends. My mom would come from work on Friday nights and she would send us to the video stores. Remember those? And she would send us to rent 3 videos from the selection of Spanish music at the Spanish movies at the video store. In Guatemala, we were too poor to ever go to the movie theater, and here we could watch all the classical Mexican movies. It was amazing. But then we started going to school a few months later. And 2 weeks into the school year, my brother came home, and he was really worried. He had a worried look on his face, and he told me, I need your help. So I am older than him for 5 years, so of course I wanted to help him. I'm like, how can I help you? He's like, I have a test tomorrow, and I need your help studying. And I told my brother, you are really freaking smart. You can memorize anything. Why are you so worried? And he said, because it's going to be an oral test. I have to go in front of the class, and I had to say all the names of the capitals and the states and the capitals here in the USA. Now I was worried because the idea of an oral test scared me to death. Like I told you, I used to stutter. And to make things worse, not only had my stuttering come back, but to make things worse, my mother, like every other parent from an immigrant, decided that since I was going to school and I was the older, I was going to be the official translator. Only days prior, we had gone on a sightseeing tour of Chicago, and we had gotten lost. So my mom decided that I was going to go talk to a police officer and ask for directions. So instead of being like, no, I'm not going to do it, I decided I'm going to walk ahead of my mom. And I went to see the police officer, and I just pretended to be talking to him. And then I went back to my mom, and I gave her the made-up directions. You wouldn't believe it, but we got lost really bad that day. Eventually, we found our way, but it wasn't thanks to me. I didn't help at all. So now that my brother is asking me for help, I decided that I'm going to help him as much as I can. So I started to write all the names of the states and the capitals on pieces of paper, and then I showed him a piece of paper for him to repeat it, and he's Iowa. Perfect, I told my brother. He was trying to say Iowa. You see, the problem was that in our time living here in the United States, the only thing that we have been able to memorize was the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, the alphabet song. So we were taking every letter and we were putting it one next to the other to make up how you pronounce the names. Now, if we messed up Iowa, just imagine what we did with Kentucky and Mississippi. But my brother studied, and we thought that he was ready. He had memorized every single state and the capitals, the way we pronounce them, but he had memorized them. So he went to school, and the next day I'm waiting for him. I'm like really excited, and I asked him, so how did it go? And he starts crying. They made fun of me. Everybody was laughing at me. Even the teacher was screaming at me that I didn't study. And I felt so sad for my brother because he has studied so hard. And I felt so mad because I wasn't able to help my brother. Again, I wasn't able to help. So I decided we're going to change the way things are doing, the way we are doing things here. From now on, no more Telemundo, no more Univision. We're going to watch TV in English only. And my brother said, yes. So that's what we started to do. We went to school, and when we came back from school, we would watch The Cosby Show. Before we learned about all the allegations against him. We watched Roxanne. Before we learned that she actually hates undocumented immigrants. We watched The Simpsons on Fox. Before we learned that we shouldn't be watching Fox because they hate immigrants. And then when my mother came back from work and she switched the channel to her novelas, we didn't watch novelas with her anymore. Instead, we went to our room and we studied the words that we had learned, especially the crazy words by Bart Simpson. Eat my shorts. Kawabanga, dude. And sometimes my mom would come into the room. ¿Qué están haciendo? ¿Están hablando de mí? Are you guys talking about me? Sometimes we were. But most of the time we were just trying to learn English. The only time when we allowed ourselves to watch TV in Spanish was on the weekends when we could see the Mexican movies with our mom. But then a couple of weeks later, when my mom sent us to the video store, I decided I'm going to rent one movie in English. So I did that. And that night, after we watched one of the Mexican movies, I took out the movie that I had rented in English without permission, and I put it to play. It was the Eddie Murphy Raw special. Hey, I thought it was a regular movie with a beginning, a middle, and end, a story, a plot. But it was just this guy talking funny things one after another one that we couldn't understand anything. So we watched for a little bit, and then I fast forward the movie. Pay attention, and nothing. I fast forward the movie again, and nothing. I fast forward the movie one more time, and then I saw the guy was moving his leg up and down to the sound of the music. Dun, 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 dun. Then he did a little jump, a little scream, woo! And he did the moonwalk. He was making fun of Michael Jackson. We knew who Michael Jackson was. It was so freaking funny. It was hilarious. My brother and I started to point at one another on the TV. Funny, funny. I was sitting on the floor in front of the sofa, and I turned back to watch my mom, who was sitting on the sofa, to see her reaction. And I saw her face. And she had this look on her face. She was looking at me and my brother like she didn't know who we were. Like we were strangers. Like we were alien to her. So I told my brother, why don't you go in the kitchen and get some popcorn and some sodas? And my brother, who always loves to eat, immediately got up. Like, yeah, I went to the kitchen. And while he put the popcorn on the microwave, I stopped the movie, I took it out, and I put one of the Mexican movies on. And then when my brother came back with the popcorn, he saw the Mexican movie on, and he just went and sat right next to my mom. and cuddle up to my mom, and my mom hugged him. And I wanted to do the same, but I was a teenager, so I wasn't going to do, too cool to do that. So I got up from the floor, and I sat on the other side of the sofa, and I watched my mom, and I watched my brother. And I knew that we had to get used to this country, that we had to learn how to speak English so we could get good grades and a good job. But that night, on the tiny apartment, we just needed to be a family. Thank you.